It's just constantly invigorating. Like you're constantly challenging your brain and pushing yourself. May it be a creative side of things, or how can we make things better? It's a constant dynamic challenge, which I love.
This is the Deep in the Weeds podcast. I'm Anthony Huckstep. So much has changed over the last decade. The way we interact with each other, a greater connection to community and a sense of purpose too. What does the modern hospitality group look like that centres around community, service and actively seeking ways to make a better contribution? Meira Harel is the General Manager of Another Kind Hospitality Group in South Australia. Meira, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you, Huck. How are you?
I'm good. It's good to get you on the show. You're pretty busy doing all sorts of things, not just General Manager of a hospitality group. How's things down there at the moment in South Australia?
Yeah, we're starting to feel the silly season kicking in, slightly later than usual, but it's definitely coming our way, which is very good. We're very grateful for that, and just trying to make the most out of it at the moment. It's very busy.
Tell us a little bit about the group, Another Kind, and the sort of venues that you have.
So Another Kind has recently formed into a group. We, at the moment, have 3 restaurants in Adelaide. The 3 are Press Food and Wine, Lee Street Wine Room and Peel Street Restaurant, as well as an e-commerce wine business called Juice Traders. So all businesses have existed prior to Another Kind, but have recently, in the last 18 months, been purchased by one owner who decided that it's time to make a change. And about a year ago, I joined the group as general manager, and ever since we're, I guess, redoing what those venues are doing our way and trying to introduce new platforms, and a lot of them around education, wine programs, and really an intro to another kind of hospitality, where we believe it's time to innovate, really look into what does true hospitality means, how can we create some career paths in this world of hospitality in Adelaide, and refine what we're doing. So constantly polishing and constantly rethinking what we're doing in those venues. May it be the food, may it be the tone of voice, the music, the design, to make them timeless, basically.
How did the job come about for you?
Well, I actually moved to Adelaide 3.5 years ago from Melbourne, from Victoria. My husband is originally from Adelaide, and we decided that it was time for a bit of a change and be closer to family, especially when we have 2 little ones. And it took a while. It took a while to find our feet here in Adelaide, coming from such a large city. But I was very lucky to do the opening of Lee Street Wine Room, which is one of the venues that are now under Another Kind banner. And at the time, it was just a 3 months of opening project, which allowed me to kind of put my foot in the door and get to know people around Adelaide, including the owners of Lee Street Wine Room, Sally, Sassy and Nathan. And when they sold Lee Street Wine Room to the current owner of Another Kind, they introduced me to him and basically opened the door for this position, which I guess was ticking many, many boxes for me in terms of finding a way to still do what I do, but with less time on the floor. Being a mum and also trying to find the next step of my work in this world. And surely but not slowly. We got into it. So it's been a year now, and it's been a big year. And the team has grown, and we're really, really busy creating all the platforms that we believe will allow us to grow, because we see this as a growing group. We're not finished yet. We're probably going to grow slightly more within South Australia before we're hoping to, take ourselves into a few other states.
Tell us a bit about this new approach to hospitality. COVID sort of gave everyone a license to try new things, and they had to try new things to survive in many cases as well. But it also allowed many to let go of the past as well. What's some of the initiatives and culture that you're bringing into the group?
I think for us is mainly the attention to balance. And constantly seeking balance for our teams. Obviously, hospitality got a huge hit when it comes to staffing, and people are, as they should be, being a lot more picky with what roles and positions they do take in this world. So, that forces us to really think, okay, what is it that we're offering? How good it is, how well people can live off it, but also how much can they grow and see a return for themselves in it without impacting their day-to-day life outside of work. So that's something that it's not easy. It's very challenging. Obviously, we work long hours, but we're still trying to refine that every day. And I think that's for us the main thing, looking after our people, making sure that we are providing a sustainable environment for them to have their own lives, to really see this as something where they can have a career in. And we need that, because for us to grow, we need the people, and we need skilled people. So we're very, very happy to teach, which is then the next thing that we are developing constantly, which training programs and offering education and not taking it for granted anymore that we'll just find skilled people. No, we're here to teach them, when we're here to grow people from scratch and really show them the way from the beginning and how it can be done right, and how you don't have to give away everything you have to work in hospitality like you used to be.
Take us back to when you were young. What sort of role did food play in your family growing up?
A huge role. I'm the youngest out of 6. My mum grew up on a farm in Newtown, Connecticut, in America, and her father had had a dairy farm. Her mum was the usual farmer's wife, growing everything at home and cooking everything in-house, so nothing was bought. And when she immigrated to Israel, where she met my father, she really brought that with her, and that's how we grew up, where everything was made at home. I don't think we've ever had a bought like cake or cookies, and we lived in the kitchen where she made everything, which was amazing, because she also worked full-time and raised 6 children. She also really took a lot of my dad's heritage on board, which was from the other side of the world. My father is his family is from Iraq, so there's a lot of mix and matches there in our kitchen. Yeah, and she really, really learned everything from my grandmother. So flavors and textures and colors were a main thing on our table every day. And my family really was raised around community, as my dad was the head of the synagogue, the local synagogue in where we live. He still is, so the door was always open for people who needed where to eat and where to stay and people to connect with. So hospitality, I guess, in a way, was something that I guess I didn't know I was growing with, but was definitely something I grew up with in a different kind of frame.
Do you have any examples of dishes or feasts that you remember from when you were young that you can share?
Absolutely. I think, I guess, the main weekly dinner would be a Friday night dinner. As I said, I grew up in Israel at a religious home where the Sabbath is a big a weekly event. So the Friday night dinner is a feast. And for me, the first course of that dinner is something that, till this day, 10 years in Australia now, I miss a lot, where it's always the same, but every week it still tastes very special, where you have the fish and probably 12 or 15 different salads on the table, all fresh and, or just made a moment before dinner, and a lot of pickles and fermented goods on the table that would be, preserved according to the season. And that's something that, it's really hard to replicate, because no matter what, it has that special flavor of that special dinner once a week, and it's every week it's special again. So that's definitely something I miss, but also cherish in my, I guess, understanding of flavor. Well, I guess like many people have a similar story. I was never meant to be here for this long. I came for what was planned to be 3 months work experience, opening my eyes, trying to see other things. And I guess 6 weeks after I arrived here, I met who ended up being the father of my children and and my partner. And I also discovered a world that had so much wealth of and passion when it comes to food and wine, and I just couldn't let go of it. I had to stay. And you never plan those things, and things just kept going. More experiences, more challenges, more people who I met along the way, and before I realized that this is where I was, and this is where I kind of, I guess, found myself in a way, where I could really share my passion and learn and gain more knowledge, where I don't think I could have done it to this degree back at home. Not because it doesn't exist, just because I guess Australia is a little bit more advanced in that way. And it was too intriguing and too exciting for me to let go of, so I stayed.
Tell us about the first steps into your career in hospitality.
So that would be nearly 16 years ago. I actually had to pause my previous career, which was in professional sport. I was a professional athlete. I was a high jumper, and unfortunately I had quite a severe back injury that forced me to quit, which was a very painful, physically painful and mentally painful part that I had to get through. And after a while of beating myself up about it and going through the motions of letting go of that career, I had to make a move, and I decided that, no one else is going to do it for me. I have to do it for myself. And for me, as I shared with you before, food and wine and people and sharing sharing a table was something that was so easy, something that was so familiar. So working in a restaurant was something that I felt very comfortable with doing. So I became a waitress and very, very quickly fell in love with it because it was fun and I got to meet lots of people and I got to chat to guests and teach them things and make them smile. And for me, it was after many years of training and being on my own for many hours of the day, that was so fantastic. And running around and having that rush and buzz was just something that I immediately fell in love with. So one thing led to another, and I was really, really interested in wine. So I started reading and going to tasting where possible and buying wines. And, every time I saved a little bit of money, I went and bought a few bottles or went out and dined. And, like every other 20-year-old that starts their way in this world. And I guess it didn't stop because coming from a world of professional sport, challenging yourself and always looking for the next step and the next achievement, it just naturally made me push myself harder and forward to then become a restaurant manager and involved within the community. So that was the start of it.
What were the really important venues when you first started your career in Melbourne for you?
Look, I have to acknowledge the first venue that opened their door to a young sommelier coming from, an obscure country like Israel, and let me be a part of the team, which was Brooks of Melbourne, that no longer exists, but it was such a stepping stone for me because, it was a new city in a way, working in this language, even though I spoke English at home, but still working in English was something that I had to get used to. Learning about new ingredients and native ingredients and local producers, they really opened their heart and arms to me. So, and I've learned so much. And I think, that was such a beautiful space, surrounded by incredibly professional people and leaders in the industry. So I think that was, I don't know if I was where I am today without having those 2 years there that taught me so much about Australian hospitality. And gave me the confidence to really spread my wings and take the next step, which was the Lake House in Daylesford, where I became a head sommelier there. So not only a tree change, but working with an incredible cellar. It was like a candy store and a dream come true for every sommelier. And obviously working with Ala Wolf Tusker so closely in that space with so much heritage and history, really gave me so many tools that I use now as a manager, and maybe understanding financials, which I guess is something that not a lot of people talk about, but is so important to know. In this world of fun wine and service, but as well as respecting tradition, as well as learning and creating the future. So the Lake House had its own stamp on me, which was very, very important. To then move back to Melbourne to a hip and very, I guess, cool venue like the Town Mouse, which I think for me, the Town Mouse was where I could really become who I am in that space, taking everything I've learned over the first 4 years in Melbourne and really make it my own, because it was in a way casual, but still so so professional and so attentive to service and wine and details in food. So it was actually a very interesting journey that had every step along the way had its own meaning to take me to the next step, if that makes sense.
Do you have any stories of what it was like working at the lake house with other wolf tusk or even town mouse, and sort of the impact that it had on you?
I think, Ala Wolf Tusker, apart from being a legend for me, being a woman that is so incredibly strong, and a mother too, for me was something that allowed me to really believe in myself that, I can do it, and to really make sure that I don't give up, because it's not easy in this world, not impossible, of course, and something that I really now thrive to work with my teams is equality and that space of gender balance in this world. And I think, working alongside a fierce, opinionated, very strong woman was something that I needed to experience myself, in a position which was very, a leadership position as well, but to still have that, someone to look up to and to learn from in that space. So I think for me, that's a lot of what I took from working with her. And at the town mass, it was all about enjoying life, really celebrating life, and what it brings every single day, no matter what it is. With a very small team, that was family, that really appreciated quality, and appreciated community. We're a neighborhood restaurant, the little engine that could. It was really nothing was impossible. Anything that we wanted to do, we did. And really allowing ourselves through that healthy confidence to make people explore the world of, slightly unusual wines or more challenging plates of food, in a very comfortable, inviting environment where you can walk in with your sneakers and it's all cool, and listen to really good music, and know the person across from the other end of the bar, and always know the people who work in the space. And I think that was the special thing about the town mouse, that no matter what, you would always go there and you would have the best time, which, it sounds simple, but very hard to create.
Well, you didn't waste any time once you did get here in Australia, and within 4 years you were named Victorian Sommelier of the Year. What sort of impact did that acknowledgement have on you?
I didn't see that coming, that was for sure. Look, I was very proud, because it was I worked really hard. So for me personally, it meant that, that hard work meant something to someone else that believed in what I was doing, but it was also an opportunity to voice myself, and to expand the circles where hopefully I could make a difference. And that's where moving back from Daylesford to Melbourne and starting things like Grow Assembly, and being part of tastings or judging wine shows because of that acknowledgement, meant that I could have a greater reach to express my opinions and philosophies when it comes to wine and service. And yeah, those things do help.
You're one of the co-founders of Grow Assembly. Tell us a bit about how that came about and what you were doing.
So in 2016, a bunch of us who worked in restaurants in Melbourne really felt the struggle with finding staff or finding skilled staff. And we obviously realised that there's no real education when it comes to being a professional in this industry. I mean, we were just very lucky to work in venues that offered education or mentoring opportunities, but obviously it's not the same case everywhere you go. So after coming back from New York, being part of the Welcome Conference in 2015, which really inspired us to start a movement, I guess, or collect the community around us and talk about education, talk about inspiration, and for it to be led by front of house personalities, because obviously there's many conferences or festivals that are led by chefs, and we felt that the voice of the front of house and the importance of service and education in that space wasn't vocal enough or had enough attention, and whatever was available around wasn't current enough. So we thought, all right, no one else is going to do it for us. We're going to have to make this move and put it together, which was very exciting and very, challenging in a good way. It sparked some difficult conversation, topics that were, for some people perhaps been confronting, but also amazing for some to bring those ideas to life. So we started in 2016 with our first conference in Melbourne, hosting many incredible speakers from across Australia and a couple international. And we were amazed with the feedback that came along with it, because it felt like it was exactly what everyone was missing, at least in our immediate community. And that obviously gave us the encouragement to keep going. So we then had another conference in 2017, and 18 we already grew to Sydney as well, and in 19 we had our first one in Adelaide here, and unfortunately then COVID hit, and being a conference that involves people from across the country, that was quite hard to continue, but we're working on bringing it back to life hopefully very soon, because it's important, and there was a momentum there that we don't want to miss. And I think people are thirsty to have a conversation. Everyone's so busy, there's never enough time, but at the end of the day, if you stop for a moment and open that conversation to more people in the industry, there's so much you can gain from it.
There have been a lot of discussions about work-life balance in the last couple of years, and people looking at their careers differently. You're general manager of a lot of venues, and there are a lot more on the horizon, and your partner Banjo is also in the industry, and you've got a young family. How do you find that balance of life and such an intense work life as well?
Some weeks are harder than others, but I guess for us, it's about the strict guidelines that we've put in front of us, which are our young children come first, because we can always work in another restaurant or have another business, but they're only going to be this young for a certain amount of time, which we made a choice and a decision that we don't want to miss on that. So for us, for example, we make a rule that come Friday night, we close the computer and we do our best not to open it till Sunday night, where we need to prep the week. And because it's a mutual decision, then we make sure that we keep it and help each other to keep it. But, I think it's about making guidelines for the people who work with you as well. This is when I'm available and this is when I'm not. And although everything we work on is very, very important and seems very urgent, nothing can't really wait for the next day. And it's having that perspective and understanding that we can only do this if we look after each other and bring each other back into, bring things in proportion, back into perspective, and keep them in proportion, and make sure that, some days we have a deadline and we need to make it happen, and we made a collective decision that we're putting our heads down and we're not going to finish until we're not going to leave it until we finish. But other days it's about, you know what, now it's time to go home and everything else could wait for tomorrow. And I think, look, I can only say that because I'm now in a more, executive role where I can control my time a lot more. And I can't say it's always been like that. But it's about being really strict with your decision making. And that's why we moved to Adelaide. To have slightly more slower environment around us in a good way that would force us to do this and just spend time with family.
You're at the helm of a young, dynamic group. What do you love about what you're doing?
Many things. I think for me, it's the people. I guess it's tacky. It's what many of us say, but it's the people. It's the people that you get to meet, and you get to learn from, and you get to be challenged by, because not every single day is different. And for me, that's exciting. You come to work, and even though you've got a plan, you never know how the day is going to end, because you're working with people, and it's very diverse community that we have here, which is something that is not by accident. Like we want to make things as broad and as inclusive to empower young professionals. So, being a part of doing that and mentoring and really having powerful discussions every day with young professionals and some, more people who have been in the industry for a while as well, because we've got a few of those too. It's just constantly invigorating. Like you're constantly challenging your brain and pushing yourself. May it be a creative side of things, or how can we make things better? It's a constant dynamic challenge, which I love.
Well, Meira, it's fascinating to hear just a part of your story, and look forward to seeing what you do with Another Kind in the next couple of years as well. We've loved having you on Deep in the Weeds today to hear a part of your story. Please keep in touch and we'll catch up again soon.
Thanks for your time, Huck. I really enjoyed it.
This is the Deep in the Weeds podcast. I'm Anthony Huckstep. Stay tuned as we take a deep dive into the lives of the incredible people who ply their trade in the food and hospitality sector. Special thanks to executive producer Rob Locke for making this all happen. Follow us on Instagram at Deep in the Weeds Podcast, or email us at podcast@deepintheweeds.com.au. Stay safe and be well.